Welcome back, folks, to another chess video with Mr. D. So I'm going to look at a couple of standard endgames for you now. There's one thing, start of playing, you start getting pieces and you end up in a winning position, but quite a lot of beginners have no idea at all how to actually capitalize and checkmate their opponents. So I'd like to show you some basics. So let's set up a basic position where you might have your king, you've got your opponent's king, and you've managed to, with your queen, jump around the board, taking all the rest of their pieces. It's just your queen and your rook left, and you're wondering how to get them in checkmate. So let's have a quick look at that and see what we could possibly do. So the idea is that you want to try and trap your opponent's king. So on the back rank, it doesn't matter which side of the board, so it could be this back rank here, it could be that rank there. Sorry, that's actually a file, it's a column. But basically you're trying to use one of the edges of the board to trap your opponent's king. That's going to be the mission. So it doesn't really matter where your opponent starts. In this case, I've got them on the back rank already, but we'll give them a little bit of leeway. So let's make a couple of moves to get them in the middle of the board, so they've got a bit more freedom. So they're moving around. We're just doing some random things for the moment. Okay, so their king is in the middle of the board. So this is the worst possible place for their king. We're going to try and push them to the back of the board. Now that's either that way or that way. Obviously, you will be in one of their king will be in one of the quarters, and you want to push them towards the edge in one of the ways. Now the idea is you are simply going to use your rook and your queen to block entire files or ranks in which they cannot go. Now with that in mind, I've got my rook here, and you can see it attacks all the way down this file. That means that the king is not allowed to come to any of these spaces and can never get past this rook. There is one exception to that. If my king was out the way and their king got down to here, obviously they could take my rook. But assuming you're not being entirely stupid and leaving your rook undefended, they're never going to be able to get past your rook. So they will always be limited. So their moves are restricted. They can either go up or down, or they can start pushing left. Now what you want is for them to go left, because then they're heading towards the edge of the board. Now in this particular case, our queen is over here, which blocks these spaces, so they could head left or they could come down. So the worst case scenario here is they're going to come down. Oh, hang on, it's our move first. But essentially they could come down. So our idea is we're going to try and push them this way if we can, because our rook is already blocking this line here. So with that in mind, we want to try and leave our rook where it is so it can maintain its block. And we're going to try and move our queen to a position which attacks their king and pushes them in this direction. If you need to, pause the video, see if you can work out where the queen needs to go in order to push the king towards the left. Hopefully you've just had a look at that, and you can see that if we move our queen down here, so queen down to there, and now whilst the rook is blocking this file, we are now attacking this way, and the king is forced to move to one of these spaces heading left. So the king is going to move. It doesn't really matter where it goes, and we're going to continue this pursuit. Our queen is now the piece which is blocking the king's movement, and it's now not going to be able to come out. So what we need to do is try and leave that where it is and bring our rook into position so it can now do the same thing and attack this king such that it forces it again to move to the left. Now sadly our king is in the way. Ideally we'd have taken our rook and placed it on the king's spot so it does the same job. But our king is in the way, so we're going to have to do this in two steps. There's a couple of choices. You could get your king out of the way, or in this case I might just actually move my rook up and come round the queen. So black's going to make a move. They obviously don't want to go to the left, so he's just going to come down this way. Now we can move our rook across, and you can see our queen is still blocking this file, and our rook is now attacking the king. It obviously can't move this way because it would still be under a threat from our rook, and it's forced again to come to one of the three spaces on the left. So the king is now going to move. It's going to come down here hoping to take the rook. Now Now with a queen and a rook, this is one of the easiest possible endgames, because the beauty is, if you move your queen across, it actually still defends this rook, and his king has got no chance of taking that rook ever, because wherever the rook is, as long as it's in the line next to the queen, it will always be defended. So the king is once again forced to move down to the left. It can't actually go to this square on the bottom because of the queen attack there, so he is forced into one of these two spaces. Let's say he goes that one. And finally, our rook is going to finish the job. The queen is threatening everything down that row. The rook is threatening everything down that row. The king has got nowhere to go, and this is a checkmate. So to re-summarize what's going on here, you're constantly alternating between attacking with your rook and your queen, blocking off successive rows or columns, ranks or files, such that the king is forced to the edge of the board. So from this position here, we've already got the king on one of the edges, so the ideal place to put your queen or your rook is actually somewhere on this rank here, this row. So as white, my first move might actually be there, straight to h7, which stops the king escaping. It can then only move left and right. So the king is going to move left or right, at which point we want to try and get our rook onto the back rank. Ideally it would be there, but our queen is obviously in the way, so we're going to move it around our queen. The king's going to move, and we can bring it down for checkmate, blocking the row it wanted to move to, and obviously checking and blocking the final row. So that's the idea with a rook and a queen. It's a lovely endgame if you can get up by that amount of material, and hopefully that's nice and easy. The same would happen if you managed to promote a second pawn and get a second queen. You could pretend that rook was actually a second queen, and you'd be good to go. So that's the most basic of endgames you could possibly get. Let's have a look at another one, which is similar, but not quite as straightforward. There is a subtlety with this one. Let's put the black king again in the middle of the board, and this time you haven't got a queen, you've got two rooks. So let's put them in some awkward places so we can see what's going on. So we're going to start this game here, and we're going to follow the same pattern. We're going to try and push this king towards the edge, because that's the easiest place to get them in checkmate. Now obviously the way our rooks are currently placed, this file is blocked, so the king is probably heading, or going to try and stay in the center, but we need to push it away from the center. The quickest way to get it to an edge, it's obviously is going to be by pushing it that way, because it's only 3 squares away. So our first move is probably to try and block off this row here. And now we could make a move with our rook to this square here, but if we do that, the king could just take us if we move to that square, so it's not quite as safe as another alternative. Have a quick think, where are we going to move? Okay, so hopefully you found the rook move to here, which blocks off this entire rank and forces our king in these 3 directions. It obviously can't come this to this file, because our other rook is now coordinating and blocking that off. So the king's going to move out of the way, and he's a sneaky king, so he's actually going to go this way, which we think looks good for us, because now we want to try and block off this file here. Now the obvious move is to try and move your rook up to here and block off that row, but this is a difference between the queen and rook ending compared with the 2 rooks. Now with the 2 rooks, the pieces do not defend each other, and therefore the king can actually take the rook, and you've just made your endgame a lot harder. You can still win from this position, but we'll cover that later. You don't want to do that. You ideally want to be a little bit more careful, so you can't move directly to that square. The best thing to do, there's 2 choices, but personally the best thing to do is, ideally you want to be blocking that rank, and therefore rather than moving with the rook you would hope to move, just push the one you'd already pushed up one more rank. So now you are blocking it off, and if the king continues to progress further up the board, you can keep pushing this rook up. The alternative method would be to move the other rook around, but there's no need to do so, and it delays by an extra move when the king could actually come further down. So for example, if I tried instead to move my rook round, so say I brought it over here and brought it up, Well, I make the first part of the move, and then suddenly the king is attacking my other rook and has come back down. So if I was to come up here and check him, well, he's just taken my rook. So you've got to be slightly careful when you've got two rooks and one of them's therefore not a queen. So with this all in mind, we're going to, instead of doing that, we're going to simply move our rook up, and we've blocked off this rank quite nicely. So black's going to make some move. Let's have a look. What could they do? They could move very simply. They don't want to really go backwards, and we've blocked off this square already, and these three are blocked off. So the only logical place really for him to move to try and prolong the game is to move slightly to the right. So with that in mind, that now makes our choice of moves quite easy. We are now going to bring our rook up. This row is already blocked off. We're now attacking this row, and we're forcing the king back. The king is not next to one of our rooks, so we're safe for the moment. So the king is going to move backwards, and this time it's attacking this rook here. So we've got to be slightly careful. If we were just to move our rook directly from there to there, which would be the anticipated move, we would lose our rook in the process. So again, you've got to be slightly careful. Now, one of the easiest ways of dealing with this is if he's attacking you, well, just move the rook further away. It's still going to be attacking the same rank. It's just because you've got extra distance, he's now going to need 3 moves to get anywhere near attacking your rook. So by moving it with one move across the rank, you gain yourself some time, and you actually make his position no worse, or your position no worse. You've still got him blocked in. You just gain some time to get your other rook to come up and start playing. So with that in mind, we are now going to let him move. He's going to come and try and attack us. Our second rook can come into the action. We're attacking both this rank here, and we're now attacking that rank as well, forcing him back. He's going to try and get close to our rook. Well, sadly, that's great, but we've got that row blocked, and now we deliver the final checkmate across the back rank as well. So to summarize, with 2 rooks, you're doing exactly the same as with the queens. You push them back one by one, but each time you're blocking off an entire rank. So you go that rank, then that rank, then that rank. But when you do, you just need to be very slightly careful that the king could get close to one of your rooks and take it. If it does, you just need to make sure that you take the time to move away to the edge of the board, ideally, to give yourself a bit of space. So if he moves across here, that's fine, you've got space. If he comes back, you've got to watch out. You can't jump straight to there or you've lost your rook. So just move that across, get some space, and then it doesn't matter where he moves. In this case, he's coming across here so that he blocks your rook movement up to there. Fine, just move your rook further away so that he's now got lots of moves before he can get anywhere near your rooks. He can start coming that way, but game is now over. It doesn't really matter how close he gets. His king's coming in. You can't deliver the checkmate directly there, but that's not a problem. You bring your rook across, he has to move away, and you can now deliver your checkmate. Hopefully that makes sense when you've got 2 rooks or a rook and a queen. I will do some more subtle checkmates later, but hopefully that will get you started. Thank you very much.